I love therapy, and in fact, I've been going to therapy since I was around 6 years old. Though I talk about therapy a lot and may interview some therapists on the show on occasion, nothing that is said in this podcast should be considered a replacement for therapy. If you are struggling, I urge you to please seek guidance from a therapist because you are absolutely worth it. Hello, everyone. You are listening to Wine, Dine, and 69, a podcast about dating, relationships, sex, and self-love. I am your host, Rachel Dalton. As always, I hope you are doing wonderfully. I can't believe that it's July. Time is moving so fast. My dad always said when I was growing up that the older that you get, the faster time goes. And he's right about most things in this world, but he's especially been right about that. That has absolutely been my experience. Yeah, thank you so much for the incredible feedback on last week's episode. Are you happy with it was an incredible conversation, and I was so thrilled and also kind of nervous to share it with you all because it's a little bit of a deeper one. And I hope that everybody has started following Are You Happy on Instagram and perhaps supporting their Patreon. It's an incredible project and very uplifting. It's a page that I go to kind of when I just need a little bit of, a reset, I suppose, to remember to be grateful for what I have and think about the small things in life that are good when I feel like much of the time, I'm so focused on all the things that are going wrong. It reminds me to be grateful for the small things. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please check it out. I would like to remind everybody at this time to please remember to check out Please Me. And if you use my referral code, which I will share again on the social media platforms, then you get 3 months of VIP access, which means that you can access all of the different worlds and not just your own. And if you don't know what I'm talking about by worlds, sexual worlds, please go back and check out episode 31 with Heather, the CEO and founder of Please Me. I actually discussed Please Me after recording with my guests today. That's right, plural guests. And we were just kind of lamenting about how difficult it is to talk about sex on the internet, just talking about it. So Please Me is an awesome platform where you can go, and it's an open place where you can talk about and discover sex and be open and talk to like-minded people and learn new things. So it's really, really cool. Please check it out. My conversation today with my guests is an awesome one, and part of the reason why I'm keeping this intro so short is because we just had such a blast talking with each other that our conversation runs a little bit longer than usual, which is awesome and fantastic. I honestly could have talked to them for hours. I talked to Ennie and TopToes, hosts of the Oh Those Toes podcast, and we discuss fetishes. This is something that I knew I wanted to do an episode on, something that I feel like is misunderstood a lot. Feet are a taboo, and they're a kink that I think has a little bit of a bad reputation, and I don't think that's fair. It's, if you're not hurting anybody and you have consent, whatever, So, I learned a lot. I went in with an open mind and just ready to kind of learn and discuss. And that's what I want for you. Go in with an open mind, listen, learn, and who knows, maybe you'll figure out something you like that you didn't think that you did. So one last little thing, and this doesn't impact listeners much, if at all, but it's big for me. It's a change. I'm recording this on Thursday, the day before the episode airs, and yesterday, Wednesday, I finished my last interview before I take a little bit of a break interviewing for the summer. Episodes are still going to come out. I have a huge backlog of things, and that's part of the reason why I felt like I had to stop interviewing for a while, is because I have a lot of interviews that I need to share, and I am way ahead of schedule. And I also have some things in my professional life that kind of need my attention, and I'll be giving a little bit of an update there, and in coming months. But it's bittersweet because the interview phase really is something I've enjoyed so much, talking to so many different types of people. And I'll get back to it in the fall. And again, episodes are still going to be coming out on schedule, so you will not notice a difference at all. This is mostly just a me thing, but it's bittersweet, and I'm sad about it, but I really, quite frankly, need to get my shit together. So this summer is going to be a good opportunity for me to do that. I will be back interviewing new people in the fall. So yeah, just a little update there, which is mostly just a me thing, but I wanted to share because it's different, and the things are shifting a little bit, and it's exciting and scary, and yeah, I don't know. Big stuff coming, everyone. So stay tuned. And the big thank you to all of the listeners, of course, and also the guests whose episodes have aired, the ones who are yet to air, that are in my backlog. And also, I'm really excited for the guests that I'm going to be interviewing in the future. So this has just been the most incredible project. It's been almost a year, and I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be, which is the best feeling in the world. Okay, everybody. And with that, I'm going to get us into an ad and then into my conversation with Ennie and TopToes.
Calling all citizens of Halcyon City. The newest generation of heroes are now painting the pages of Delinquent Comics, an actual play podcast in the game world of Masks, a new generation. Join our heroes as they struggle to build a team and save the city. Can Titan escape the shadow of his mentor burnout? Is Soul's overwhelming power too dangerous to control? Will Muse discover her past? And how does White Knight stomach all those strange snacks? Listen to Delinquent Comics to find out at allportsopen.com, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever podcasts are found. New issues become available to all citizens every other Monday.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am very excited to finally, after some technical difficulties, be speaking with TopToes and Ennie from the Oh Those Toes podcast. How are you both doing today?
Good. I'm really good.
Yeah. After, those little hiccups with technology, I think much better now. Thank you.
Yes, I have a drink. When we were dealing with it, I was like, I need a drink. So I have my cider next to me now, and I'm in good shape.
I started dripping sweat. I'm like,
it was very anxiety inducing.
It was. I'm so sorry.
No, totally fine. But now that I have you here, I'm so excited to talk with you. I love Reddit. Reddit is just a treasure trove of the most wonderful and open and interesting people. And so thank you for agreeing to be here today.
Of course, absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Why don't we just start? I guess, Ennie, you can go first. Just tell me a little bit about you and what you do, and kind of, how your guys' connection started. And I'll just kind of jump in and ask questions as we go.
My name is Ennie, and I hate to use this term, but I'm going to, but I think it's the closest thing to it. I am a foot model on Instagram mostly. I do dabble in Reddit, and I will soon be opening a Twitter, but mostly it's on Instagram. I show off my feet. I am a foot fetishist and a podcaster, but I do like to show off my feet. I enjoy my feet, and I love seeing other people's feet very much. And I love talking about it. And that's really basically me and as generalized as I can make it.
We'll get into the nitty gritty, but TopToes, kind of tell me a little bit about you and what you do, and how you came to be here on this Zoom call with me.
Well, I'm a lifelong foot fetishist and have been just sort of chasing that scene throughout the internet since the birth of the internet. And 5-6 years ago, the scene kind of opened up on Instagram, where I stumbled upon Ennie, and we became fast friends, and we really enjoyed chatting together. And so we used to spend an hour on the phone 3-4 times a week, and we said, why this conversation that we constantly have, why aren't we doing this? And during COVID, we turned it into a podcast, and couldn't be happier. Now I get to
podcast.
That's where that's when we started.
Yes,
but so
awesome.
I mean, we've been talking feet and foot fetish for 5 or 6 years now. And like he said, it was just a conversation that we used to have sort of on a regular basis, and it wasn't all feet all the time, but it centered around all of that. We're very opinionated, and we love the fetish in general, and we love talking about it. So, we're learning and growing, and now it seems like teaching a little bit sometimes.
Sometimes,
yeah.
That's incredible.
It's a great way to really push the community aspect of it. And a lot of different fetishes and fetish, BDSM, kink in general always refers to itself as a community, but sometimes the community is more or less of a community. Sometimes Instagram has its breakdowns. You get people who don't have that community feel, but we take it and we push that community aspect of it, and we love to have guests and talk to people, and just we're almost evangelists of the foot fetish, if you can say it that way.
I love that. And I'm going to come right out of the gate and say I know very little about the fetish. So I'm excited, for it to take this opportunity. What I love about doing this podcast is that I get to talk to people and I get to learn, in addition to, kind of providing a platform for my listeners to maybe learn new things too. So tell me a little bit about I guess my most burning question, if I'm being quite honest, is what makes a good foot? I want to know if I have one.
That is nearly the unanswerable question, because just like everything else in human sexuality, foot fetishists all have different tastes. And as people and one of the nice things about people getting into this fetish as a, not necessarily a woman per se, but as the object of fetish desire, not the fetishist, is they don't come in with a preconceived notion. They're not looking at the Sports Illustrated or the Playboy and going, that's what society defines as the perfect body. There's no society defines the perfect foot. So you can come in on an even playing field to everyone, because without the preconceived notion, you can say, these are my feet, and you will find the people who are absolutely in love with every characteristic of your feet, no matter what.
Right.
We have a running, not feud, but we're running gag with Quentin Tarantino. We'd love to actually communicate with him, but we bring him up a lot because we love what he does for popularizing the fetish and putting it out there and being out about it. We hate his taste in feet. Majority. His
collectively,
specific
really,
fixation on Uma Thurman is just not in the wheelhouse of our particular taste.
And what is it about Uma Thurman's feet?
She has a very long foot with very long toes, kind of obvious tendons. And it's the dead opposite of what I think Ennie and I find attractive, which is more of a soft and curvy look.
Got it. Okay.
But we're not right or wrong. It's just our taste.
Right. Yeah. Right. So a good foot, it's a beautiful foot is just so subjective. And there are so many different things that foot fetishists look at when they're looking at a foot. I mean, things that people who don't have a foot fetish would never even think of. And I think that's what makes it so interesting, is that there's just so many nuances, so many little different things that we can look at. And then personally for me, I like symmetry and proportion. So if it's too long, it's not, but it can be really pretty, even if it's too long or too short, or the toes are too long, or the toes are too wide or too fat or too whatever. But the beauty of it is that there is no, like TopToes said, there is no preconceived notion, like this is what is a beautiful foot. Hollywood says this is a beautiful foot, and so you can't have a beautiful foot. Like that's not, so it's so many different things that we can find beautiful about a foot. Like I can find something beautiful of a foot, almost any and every single foot.
That's a great point. Yeah. There's no baseline for what there is for a body or breasts or whatever else there, is in the world.
And then there's some things you absolutely can control. There are guys who go gaga over a beautiful pedicure. The guys who cannot deal with not having a pedicure. And there's guys who don't want to see a pedicure at all, and they want nails natural. There are guys like me who think that nylons on a foot are the sexiest thing in the world. And there's the guys who don't want to see that. They only want to see bare. So there's things you can play with that are in your control. And then there's always a fan for every foot. Yes. Yes. As they say. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's, and I think too, it reminds me of, I think about Feet Finder, and I think it's kind of upsetting too. I hate kink shaming in any way, shape, or form, but foot fetish kind of has there's jokes about it, which just, how do you feel about that? It makes me uncomfortable, just having anybody's kink shamed, assuming that it's not hurting anybody, because if it's hurting somebody or isn't consensual, then, I don't need to do the little thing, but you get it.
Right. Yeah, I do. And I think you brought a good point right in the way you described it, though. I think the things that get part of the stereotypical shaming of foot fetish is the vocal minority of guys who are doing something non-consensual. The guys stealing shoes or stealing pantyhose out of a hamper, or, ogling,
taking what we call creep shots of women's feet,
or just even ogling a girl's foot, staring and leering. Well, that's not acceptable in any world. It's just that's what seems to be the public conception of the foot fetishist, that we're all that creepy
and it's
guy.
Portrayed in the media.
Sure.
As a joke. It's portrayed in the media as a joke, all the movies.
Even Quentin does it in a self-deprecating way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so part of what we do on the podcast is we want to show a different side of that. We want to normalize it. We want people to know that, yes, having a foot fetish can be initially considered something, but that's the same with all fetishes, right? All fetishes can have some type of shame and some type of stigma attached to it. Feet being the most common, and I'll save that line for TopToes, but it's it's that's what we try to do on the podcast, is we're trying to let people know, don't be ashamed of your fetish, don't be ashamed of liking feet. Be ashamed if you're the guy doing it without permission, but we would shame that guy if he's looking at boobs or ass or anything else without permission. If he was stealing panties, we'd feel the same way,
right?
So but don't be ashamed of having a foot fetish, of being a foot fetishist, I should say.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's just, there's shame surrounding sex of all kinds, as you said. And I just have noticed.
Queen Victoria. Western prudishism tends to be attributed to the quote Victorian era. So I'm blaming the queen herself.
Yes, I completely understand that. No, I guess another question that I have about So there are different types of things that you can do with feet, right? I must confess that I once attempted to give a foot job, not because I wanted to, but because my partner did. And like, why not give it a shot, right?
Oh, and you jumped into the most difficult thing in the entire fetish.
Yeah. And I was like also 16.
Bypass everything. We're going to bypass everything else. We're going to jump right to it.
I was like, hey, like I'm 16. We're experimenting. We're trying things. Like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. So yeah, I mean, I think that might have like given me anxiety about feet, I guess, in a way, because it was not a pleasant experience because it was very difficult. But I guess there's different types of things. I mean, there are the people who enjoy looking, like you said, there are the people who enjoy nylons. There are people who enjoy sucking and massaging. And like, what are the different ways that you can bring like feet play into the bedroom?
Oh my God. Well, the one that's in the Western view is just as simple as in, common missionary sex, just reaching up and giving a kiss, lick, or suck of the toe. That is the one thing from the fetish that seems to transcend into the vanilla world. Okay. People look at that particular act as just being fine. And of course, I've never known a woman to turn down a foot rub. But very then true. You've got the question of, when it becomes obvious that foot rub, giving that foot rub is arousing to you, are you then, crossing a line?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing that we really should touch on is why do people like feet in general? Is it just, I don't think it's just an aesthetics. I don't think it's just because they see it and they like it. It's one of the places that has the most nerve endings, and then is closely, connected to other body parts that provide like this amazing sensation. So it's not just like I'm a weirdo when I like this object or this body part. There's actual science behind it, and I can't give you all the details, but or all the specifics, I should say. But there's an amazing feeling when your feet are touched, played with, especially because we all get foot rubs like during a pedicure or massage, like in a massage parlor, whatever. That doesn't necessarily have to be a sexual, turn on. But when you're incorporating it into your sex life, it can be an absolutely amazing feeling. So, it's pretty common for men, even without foot fetishes, to suck toes. But why is that? It's because there's a direct connection for a lot of people, and it's just extremely arousing. So why not add to it?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, some guys really like it when girls suck on their fingers because it kind of is representative of like sucking on a dick. I guess I could kind of see like sucking on toes is kind of like being like sucking a clit.
Yeah. Well, and there are women that can orgasm from, having their toes licked or sucked, or, there's a direct connection.
Yeah. I'll humble brag that I've met a few of them.
Not just met,
Caused a few of
those. Yeah. I would love to brag that I'm one of those women that, and I'm going to use this term that we've been using lately, which is having a footgasm.
Ooh, okay.
I would love to brag that I'm one of those women, but I'm not. I know that there's a direct contact in between like my pinky toe and the toe next to it, where if that's, licked and caressed and sucked gently, just is absolutely amazing. Like I can almost feel it on my clit. And it's just so arousing. It's just another form of foreplay for me. Like it's almost like I have great boobs and I love my nipples being played with, but that's not what I want. Like I want you to lick in between the toes. So that's that's how I'm a foot fetishist, right? So I don't get aroused by looking at people's feet or touching people's feet. I definitely do not like male's feet. And the only time I do like them is when they kind of look a little feminine. So,
Sure.
but I do think that women's feet are sexy. So while I'm not going around trying to have sex with women and their feet, I do think that it's extremely sensual and like, I mean, it's just amazing to me. And I enjoy it so much. Not that's how my foot fetish differs. And we've argued a lot actually on the podcast, whether that makes me a foot fetishist or not, because I'm not aroused by feet, but I'm aroused by my own feet. And I think that may be a little bit egocentric, but I am. I'm aroused by my own feet and the thought of people doing things to my feet.
You know what you like. That's admirable. I think everybody should know what they like.
I think we've come to the agreement that in any sort of sexual fetish, well, a lot of them have a sort of top bottom, a giver, a receiver. If you want to use bondage rope, there is the person doing the tying and the person getting tied. They're both considered bondage fetishists.
Sure. So
I don't see, and it took any convincing me, and we've had some guests disagree with us, but we have adopted the term that yes, she is a foot fetishist as well as somebody who enjoys being the receiving side. Now, when you start putting feet and top bottom together, you get the whole dominance submission play.
Sure.
That there's a stereotype with it. Most people assume that the male foot fetishist with a female partner, she is the dominant and he takes a submissive role because he's at her feet. It's a classic power exchange. But Ennie and I, in our personal relationships, we're both in the opposite most of the time.
Yeah, right. So I do think that foot fetish, for the most part, is tied to a broader interest in dominance and submission.
Sure.
Which is why foot models are so popular, because there's so many, and why they can make money off of it, because there's so many men willing to submit. And that's their dream, is to be beneath a woman's
call it foot worship. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's right. And we've had this discussion on the podcast as well, that is it called foot worshiping because TopToes is mostly a top, he's he's dominant in his relationships, but he's still sucking and licking and playing with feet. Now, is he worshiping? Is that considered worship? What do we call that? So at some point we were like, it's making out with feet. It's, foreplay with it. I don't even know. But, at the end of the day, the word sort of sticks, that phrase sticks, foot worship. And
I love these nuances.
Right. Yeah. It's, but I mean, there's been very few sort of academic and psychological studies that we can reference. And even then, I think some of them are biased. So it's difficult to tell. So we just base it on our own experience and our guests, and my husband, I'm married, and my husband is a foot fetishist. Feet arouse him. Certain types of feet arouse him, not all feet. He can walk down the street and see a woman in flip-flops, or at the salon and see women getting pedicures. And it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to instantly have a boner. But, he's also very dominant in the bedroom. So yes, he's licking my feet, he's sucking my toes, but he's not at my feet. He's not submitting. He's not worshiping.
Sure.
So it's a power exchange, but so complicated. And I think for most people who don't have a foot fetish, they just assume that the guy that likes feet is submissive. He's a beta male. So
right. Yeah, I think there's the top bottom relationship can be more complicated. There are two things that come to mind when I think about it. First, there's the play, which is based on a German novel called Venus and Fur. Which is kind of about like that power exchange. And then there's also a movie called The Duke of Burgundy, which is kind of about how like complicated those power exchanges can be. And like maybe things aren't actually what they seem. So I think that it totally makes sense to me that it would be nuanced. And do you find that like, is it pretty down the middle when it comes to like men prefer to, look at the feet and be involved with the feet, and women are usually on the other end of being the recipient, or can it go both ways?
Definitely. Well, heterosexuality being still the more common thing. Yes. And, I would say that the gender norms are norms by, just because there are more men interested in women's feet. Mm-hmm. I do know some heterosexual women into men's feet, but they're rarer. And
they're rare, yeah. They're rare.
Yeah. Foot fetishism is probably equally, if not slightly more prevalent in the gay community.
Interesting. Okay.
But I don't know. I don't really have any empirical data on the lesbian community.
Okay.
And unfortunately, what's depicted in quote unquote lesbian porn has nothing to do with the lesbian community ever.
Right.
And then myself as a bisexual man, it's not something that transcends both sides of my sexuality. I'm not terribly interested in masculine feet.
Okay.
Well, the more 21st century term is pansexual. And then if I get into, non-gender conforming, somebody expressing with a slightly more feminine foot, then that falls into my wheelhouse. But
sure. Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. I'm loving this. This is so interesting to me. Like, just to learn more and get answers, because I feel like, again, like there's a stigma, and I want to get past that. So well, let me see. How did you, I kind of want to hear both of your origin stories. Like, how did you realize that you were into this, that this was a thing? Like, were you really young? Were you a little bit older? Like, what was, those first experiences like that made you go, oh, this is what I'm into. Yeah, this is it for me.
Yeah, I was too young to really say I can have an origin story. It's just, as long as I can remember, I had some sort of fascination well before you could even call it a fetish, prepubescent. I do remember a very young classmate, well, a year older than me, but and on the playground, I don't say incident. So a girl on the playground, sitting on top of something and kind of dangling her feet, swinging her feet back and forth, and accidentally kicking off a shoe that had come untied or something, and just spotting that. And yeah, I'm way, way, way too young to have had a sexual response to it, but I had some sort of visceral response to it.
You were like, my eyes find this pleasant.
Right.
Interesting.
And okay. I think that with most fetishes, most paraphilias in general, they almost always take root during childhood and adolescence. So it starts off in childhood with something that you like, just like you said, something you find pleasant. Mm-hmm. And then as you go into adolescence and your body starts to go through all the changes and your hormones and things, you find that, oh, wait, like this thing turned me on. And the inquisitive and curious human beings that we are, we start looking into it. And now, especially now, porn is so readily available for kids. I think they start looking, and then they get turned on, and then more turned on, and more, and then it just evolves and it grows. And I think it never stops evolving. Yeah. So, but I think it does. It's almost like a sexual imprinting. I don't know. It starts off very, very young, I think. For someone like me, it's definitely evolved as an adult. I wasn't born with a foot fetish, but I do know that from very young, I liked all things feet. So I liked having my toenails polished, and I liked pretty shoes, loved shoes.
Yeah, I also love shoes.
Nylons. Love nylons. I watched my mom get dressed, and between her and Madonna, they taught me what sexy was. And sexy is, nylons and short skirts and high heels. And just like when we orgasm, our toes are pointed, and I've always liked my feet, and I've always kept them pretty. And I've always wore foot jewelry and all that. And I think I just didn't know what it was. And then, of course, because of all this attention I paid to my feet, I met a foot fetishist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and 15 years later, and an entire family later, you know, he taught me how to really bring feet into our sex life. The displaying of my feet on social media came sort of as a joke. You know, like I said, I always had pedicured feet and jewelry and stuff. So I would post it on my, what we call my vanilla, you know, accounts. And then I started to get these really wild reactions from people. And so we researched it a little bit, and my husband's like, well, why don't you try? Like, you have prettier feet than a lot of these people. I bet you do really well. That. And yeah. And so, you know, I can't say that he pushed me towards it or that but he definitely influenced. You know, 5 or 6 years later, like, here I am, you know, with a huge attraction to feet and my own feet. And, you know, there's just so many women displaying their feet these days. I mean, with COVID, it just blew up even more. And I can't say that mine are the best by any means, but I can say that the fans that I do have are extremely loyal. They have a very particular type, and I fit that type. So, at least in my little world, in my circle, they're pretty popular.
That's awesome. Are these your feet that I'm looking at on the screen?
They are. They are.
They are. Yeah.
Yep, the logo is based on actually, it's based on a photo you gave me years ago to make a T-shirt from, and then I just liked that one so much it made the most sense to make it into the change the color a little bit and make it into the podcast logo.
Now that is a nylon. That is a nylon picture, right? Like, there's nylon.
It is. Okay. It's just doing it to black and white makes it look like it might just be shadow play. It might be nylon. It's a little more questionable, but yeah, that is actually a nylon picture.
Yeah. Well, those are my soles, and while I do admit that a lot of my followers follow me just because of my soles, I have to say that I'm a toes girl. I love toes. I love pretty toes.
I know. And the name of the podcast is Oh Those Toes, and we have a logo with your soles. I mean, your toes are showing, but no pedicure visible. Maybe we should change the podcast logo for season 3.
Is there
front view?
Is there more focus? Like, do you find like between focus on like toes versus soles? Like, how do you like ankles or like, you know, like the calf? Does that play into it at all, or is it mostly like fixated on like the foot proper? I guess.
If you ask my husband, he's very particular about feet, and it's almost the whole leg. Like,
okay,
it's got to be sort of very proportioned, like the whole, like thick leg, thick calves, thick ankles. Like, he doesn't want to see a thick calf and skinny ankles, and he doesn't want to see like too skinny of a leg or too big of a leg or too like weird shape of a leg. Like, he's just very particular. So for him, it's all about proportion for my husband. But there are people that have those, I don't know, we call them sub kinks. I mean, there's people that follow me just because of my thick ankles, and there's people that follow me just because of my thick soles, and there's people that follow me just because of my high arches. I think I'm pretty popular because of my tapered toes. My toes are sort of, they even out, you know, they don't like, they go from big to smaller to the very end. And
it's like a fan.
Sometimes size is a big deal. Like, size matters in feet, I think. You know, some people like really tiny, size 5-6 feet, and other people want really big, you know, what they call mamas, you know, to get trampled with. So if you ask my husband, yeah, he's very particular, and it does matter. But to some people, it doesn't matter at all. I actually don't think I've ever asked this of TopToes.
Yeah, that was my next question.
I think you've asked me the question way back when, soles or toes, the oversimplification.
Well, I have asked you that, but I've never asked you like, does the ankle matter? Does the leg matter? I don't even know that of you.
Yeah, I don't look at a person with their feet chopped off. So
Right.
it's part of the beauty of a person, not the only thing. It's maybe where my gaze fixates, but it doesn't mean I don't notice a shapely leg or any other part of a woman's body or guy's body, what person's body. But yeah, I'm not as much of a picky bitch as your husband seems to be.
No, yeah, he's a picky bitch.
No, we know.
I mean,
this.
it's gotten better over the years. Like before, like when I first started my page, he couldn't even look at somebody with really long toes. He was like, but now I know that he's a big fan of a lot of the girls with the longer toes. More before, I mean, it evolves. We keep saying that it really does evolve. It changes.
Yeah, I think my overall is exactly the way I will describe what I find to be an attractive foot, and it has to do with curves. Curves is feminine. I come out of more of a 70s kind of aesthetic, so everything is just kind of working curves. So a deep arch, maybe a chubbier toe, a good calf, a nice thigh, hips.
Yeah. So, but also I think you're more, like you said, you're not as picky as my husband. I think TopToes can find beauty in many different types of feet and really genuinely be attracted to them. If I can speak for you for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, people think like, like when people find out that my husband has a foot fetish, and he's not very private about it. I mean, he doesn't like wear a sign that says I like feet, but
oh damn, I have a t-shirt I could sell him if you'd like to.
I know somebody actually who might want that t-shirt. You'd wear it proudly.
Yeah. My husband is he's pretty open about it. And so when people find out, they're like, oh, well, do you like my feet? And they'll like pop out their foot and they're like shove it in his face. And he's like, it's not that, it's just like men like, ass. Right. But if a woman just, oh, do you like my ass? Like, you just can't, there's a lot more to it than just like, I think men are much more complicated than that. We don't give them enough credit. So it's just a whole picture kind of a thing. I mean, it's personality and, style and a whole bunch of other things that we don't give them credit for. So it's not like they see a foot and it's an instant turn on. It's not, there's so much more to it.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that people have this idea, they're like foot fetish. And then they're like, oh, it's any feet, all feet. And I mean, it's so specific, just like, guys might have a preference for a certain nipple, or girls might have a preference for like, an area being more muscular. Like I have a weird fixation with like, I really love my partner's, the hair and moles on his forearms. Like the nuances matter,
I love it.
Like it all matters.
Well, I find that like foot fetishists in general, like anyone that has some type of fetish, whether it's foot or hand or whatever else, I think they seem to be much more open-minded and flexible in their sexuality. So I appreciate a fetishist of any kind.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Well, what if there were like people who were interested in trying feet things, I mean, it's not something that I'll try anything once. So like, yeah, let's put me in this position. So like, if I'm somebody who had a awful triggering experience of giving an awful foot job when I was 16 and I wanted to revisit foot stuff, like how would you recommend that somebody kind of dip their toes, if you will, into this world?
TopToes, what's your line about?
We love
what's
puns.
What's your line about trying? What is it that you try anything once?
I'll try anything once and twice to make sure the opinion's right.
Yeah. Okay. Love it.
But where does one start?
You tell me.
Well, as the woman, we'll assume a heteronormative thing.
Yeah, let's use me in this. instance.
First and foremost, you're probably going to be doing this with a partner who has expressed some interest in it. I've actually, something we've never really discussed. Like, if you're a woman who likes attention to your feet, how do you bring your guy into the foot world? Wow, that's a question that we need to like do a whole episode on.
Right.
Well, there you go.
I have the answer to that, but I'm gonna let you keep going.
But you can definitely start with just asking for a foot rub. Even a guy who's not into feet will usually, if he likes you, give you the foot rub. And if he's doing it well, you're going to find those spots that on your foot that you react to. And then maybe you got to turn on a bit of the dominance and go with the, oh yeah, that spot, kiss there.
I mean, can you imagine? I think any man would like that, even if they're not submissive. I mean, even if that's not the point of it. I think men in general, people in general want to please their partner. I mean, if you're with the right partner, right?
Yeah, so, and dominance and submission aside, there's just something hot in somebody kind of guiding you with, through in anything like that.
Well, that's my kink actually is like if I'm going down on somebody, I want them to like tell me with their words exactly what they want me to do. Like,
I love that.
Very detailed.
Yes. Like guide me, direct me so that I can please you like no other, like never ever before or again. Yeah.
Like, and that like gets me going. I think it's because I grew up like reading fan fiction on the internet. Like that was like my initiation to porn. Like that's like my thing though. And so, I think that like anybody would love direction and especially really direct direction. And if it comes out of nowhere, like out of, like you said, like a foot rub and like, oh, we're doing this nice relaxing thing.
Those are the best times. Yeah. Those are the best times.
Take that sort of attitude and guide him into going down on your foot.
Oh, I love that. Going down on the foot. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to say like with anything for me personally, it's just about teasing. So even if my husband wasn't a foot fetishist, I think that if I was trying to get him in the mood, I'd start, it's in all the movies and all the shows, the footsie under the table.
Yes.
Oh God, you just pulled that thought right out of my brain.
That's what I do.
That's why you guys do this podcast together.
Yeah.
It's an iconic image of sexuality, a timeless and iconic image of sexuality. The woman just putting her foot up and under the cuff of a man's trousers.
Yep.
It's an iconic image for a reason. It's a fairly universal. That little tease, that soft nylon toe on your bare shin. It doesn't matter what you're into. It doesn't matter who you are. That unexpected, you can't see it and only feel it. That tease is maybe not 100% universal, but it's pretty universal.
And feet are, can be like another set of hands. I mean, sometimes they're even softer than hands, right? And so, I mean, just picture the warmth, the softness of a foot, just gentle caresses. Like for me, I prefer a more sensual foot play. So, so if you're not a fetishist, like first you have to have an open mind and you have to be sort of in the mindset of being able to accept, and if you're the kind of person that, feet just completely gross you out, that may not work.
Sure.
But we talk about foot smell a lot too. And
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Pheromones. And if for someone who's not into feet and not into a particular smell, I think sort of a really like light smell of the foot, with a woman's essence and mixed in with her lotion or whatever, that can be extremely arousing to a man even if he doesn't have a foot fetish. That's how armpit fetishes start,
Sure. Yeah.
So I think, you have to have the right mindset. You have to have an open mind, do the whole teasing and then start really mild, with the foot rub, like TopToes said, and maybe, telling them to ask for the kiss. And so for one thing that I think is pretty universal too, is when and I say this quite a bit actually, when you're having, sex, and he's on top and you're sort of missionary, naturally the legs go up in the air at some point. If you have kind of a dominant or aggressive partner, he'll hold the ankles, he'll lift them up. Sometimes the feet ends up in the face or near the face on the shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as he's pumping, put your foot in his face. He'll stick his tongue in there, even if he doesn't have a foot.
It's a natural reaction.
It is. And it's part of that thing we've talked about a lot. You put feet on the menu,
Right. Exactly.
There are plenty of things that, there are things that people won't do. There's always that stereotype of women who won't give blowjobs or guys who don't go down on women. But for most open-minded people, we have a lot of different things on the menu. They're not necessarily the primary act or the favorite or the go-to.
I always say sex is a buffet.
So, right.
You
put
said
those
that
on
too,
the menu.
TopToes. You've said that before. Put it on, make it like a buffet. Put it on the table. Put it on the menu. Yeah.
Absolutely. You don't have to be a foot fetishist to put a little feet in your sex life, because why not? There's lots of other things that we would normally consider non-sexual that kind of end up in our sex life.
Yeah. And life is long and things are going to get boring. So you might as well. I guess I have two questions. You mentioned feet smell, so I kind of want to talk about that. But it also occurred to me when you were talking about that, I got this image in my head, like, of in missionary, and, the feet can sometimes go up on the shoulders. I'm realizing, so I have like ballerina feet. Like, no matter how many pedicures I get, my partner always remarks, he's always like, your feet are like daggers. They are so calloused. Probably not a foot fetishist's dream, to be quite honest with you.
Well,
there's guys who go for the dry soles, the callus. There's guys who go for everything.
Yeah, I give you high arches because the ballet thing, but very. But for me, I wonder, like, sometimes if my foot ends up on his chest, there's a really interesting texture there with like his very smooth chest and my very rough feet. Does like texture come into play at all? And in addition with like the smell part of it?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I've used the description describing what, nylons. A lot of people don't understand nylon as part of a foot fetish. And for some people it's not, but nylons literally enhance all five senses reaction to feet. So it changes the texture. And with a gentle touch, a nylon is silky smooth. And with a little bit of pressure, a nylon grips and can almost be like sandpaper. And nylons do hold in scent and taste and change it a little bit. And actually it adds an auditory, because there's that sound of nylon slipping on nylon. Yeah,
that's very true.
Yeah. So you're slightly, drier, callous feet rubbing against, the furry of his chest. I mean, that's almost sensory play. I mean, that just crosses over into a whole nother. Yeah.
Yeah. It was the first time that I noticed it was like maybe like a year or two ago. And I was like, this is a very interesting sensation. Yeah. And I don't usually pay attention to my feet. So.
And I, I'm going to challenge you to really pay attention to them, and you're going to start to see the kind of.
I don't think she had a choice when she had us as guests. She's going to pay attention from this point on, and notice people noticing and all kinds of things.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. I feel like that's like, I have to try new things. It's funny. I'm actually relatively vanilla in my taste, even though I love talking about it, but I also am just like, oh, there's so much to try. And even though some of it's kind of scary or a little bit vulnerable, like it's important to like push your boundaries and try new things, and you never know what you're gonna end up liking. So
yeah, but we're not hanging you from the ceiling in chains or paddling your ass until it bleeds. We're just talking about feet, no, there's nothing scary in that way.
It's true. It is just feet.
Sometimes people think, because of the way, like all the things and the way we talk on the podcast and my, my social media and all of that stuff, sometimes they think that I have this like crazy, like sex life. And while I'm open to trying absolutely anything and everything, we have sort of favorites and we kind of stick to them. And then I sort of keep these things that I'm going to try in my pocket. So to speak. So I like sometimes the men that I interact with on Instagram, they're like, oh my God, so every night do you do blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, are you kidding? I'd be exhausted. Like if I did that every single night, I would be dead.
Lazy sex is underrated.
And so, while yes, I'm open to trying all of these things. And yes, I'm fetishy. I don't try all 20 things in one night, every single night. And every single night is not extremely different or crazy or whatever. So but I will say, as a foot fetishist, feet almost always are always involved. I mean, even if it's just, let's stick to your, 69. I mean, even if it's just some dinner and wine and we're going to 69, like the feet will be touching his face or his, back or his butt or something always. Like, it's just an appendage for me. It's another pair of hands for me to feel up on him.
It's an erogenous zone. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so definitely use your rough feet, and don't knock yourself over it, because I'm telling you, there's a huge following for drier feet. Like, I sometimes have to put alcohol, like if I have a custom request or I'm trying to, change it up a bit, I will have to like drench my feet in alcohol so that all the moisture is sucked out, and then I take
it becomes drier. Yeah.
So I mean, there's a huge following for dry feet. Yeah.
Go figure. I mean, that's I think I said that to somebody, and they were like, "Ooh, ballet feet! Like that sounds like interesting." This is somebody who was into feet, and I mean, there's something for everybody, right?
The expression "the dancer's feet" has a certain romanticism to it until you've actually met a trained ballerina.
Yeah.
Like their toes are bleeding inside the toe shoes.
Yeah.
And then it's a different thing entirely. But it's something you can play to as well, because if your feet are constantly dry and a little bit abused from years, then, here's a very nice lotion or moisturizer. Go to town and fix them up for me.
Yeah. I did a foot mask a couple weeks ago. That was very satisfying.
Yeah, I do both. I go through phases where my feet are a little bit rough because I love to be barefoot.
Me too.
So what that means is that I have to there's a lot of care. Like I have to have like a foot regimen, beauty care for my feet, because my husband does prefer them to be softer, and I do like to have, a certain aesthetic from my Instagram page, but I do have rough feet sometimes because I do enjoy being barefoot. I love to feel things on my feet. And not always in a sexual way.
All you got to do is spend some of that barefoot time on a sandy beach.
Yes.
There's nothing better for getting rid of the calluses and the dry and the loose skin than just walking barefoot in the sand.
That's so true.
And you know what, too? My husband pays extra attention to my feet when they're a little bit dry and need attention. So then what happens is, I don't go get a pedicure. I'll sit on my couch and he'll sit at my feet and he'll rub and he'll caress and he'll, grab the little exfoliator thing and he'll lotion them up. And it's just almost this just nurturing. There's nothing sexual about it at that point. It's just the display of affection.
Yeah, it's grooming too, right? Like there are some guys who want to shave the vagina of their partner.
I've done a foot pampering session that almost had the ritual of a Japanese tea ceremony with a bowl of warm water and just slow and meticulous with folded towels and just hours to go through. Not like I had any real instruction in mind, just kind of that I fell into that mindset and just spent an hour, maybe more, with the washing and the patting dry and then the exfoliating and the lotion and
it's
a little
the
more
ultimate display of affection. It's like I said, my husband is not a submissive man, and yet that's what he does for me. But he does things like that for me all the time. Like he's very, chivalrous that way. He'll carry groceries in for me, and he'll say things like, I'm too pretty to carry those heavy things. And I want to go out and pull the weeds. And he'll come after me and say, no, like, don't ruin your hands. I'll do it for you. At the same time, I'm a really strong, just, I don't even know how to describe myself. I'm just really tough. And I'm probably the least princessy type of person that you're going to find. And he loves, and I think that's why he loves doing those kinds of things for me, because he knows that I can do it for myself. I will do it for myself. I don't mind getting my hands dirty, but those are times when I'm vulnerable. Yeah. And he gets to be there for me. So, so it's not always just about fucking feet or sucking feet or, it's just in my home, it's a form of showing your love. It's a display of affection, and my kids do it all the time. They don't know that we've sexualized feet.
Sure.
They just know that, if mom's feet hurt, like, it's okay to rub their feet, or if their feet hurt, I'm going to rub their feet. Or, like, if my husband is forever on the couch with my feet on his lap and he's just kind of rubbing or caressing them. So yeah, I have a 2-year-old that is constantly shoving his feet in my face for me to kiss, because we do the whole, like, we read a book where we're kissing the toes and 10 toes and we count that, So
yeah, but I think you can't call it fetishy. Every human being on the planet has put a baby foot in their mouth and gnawed on it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right. Yeah.
What people do.
So why do we grow up, and why is it weird? Why is it disgusting then? If if this is a normal thing, so that's kind of our goal. One of our little missions with the podcast is to normalize it, to know that it can be a form of love, like a hug, but also, you can, like TopToes said, put it on the menu and really enjoy it.
And I like how you use the term chivalry to express when a guy who isn't necessarily identifying as submissive is still doing that pampering. It's a great way to explain it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's not that you're my foot bitch. I just, which, there's a lot. I'm going to say that there are a lot. And that's why the foot fetish is considered to be weird, and it's made fun of a lot, because these men go through extremes. They're so submissive. I mean, they're like, step on shit and grease and dirt and muck, and I will lick it off, and I mean, that's a bit much, but
it's a favorite target for people to express their desire to be humiliated. And I think in those cases,
that's true.
It's probably more the guys who get off on humiliation fixate on feet than the guys who fixate on feet get off on humiliation.
Yeah, the Venn diagram doesn't go both ways. It's not a Venn diagram. But that actually kind of went into like one of my last questions, which had to do with like the taboo itself. And like, I have found myself wondering, is it just like something that is naturally appealing? Is there something about the fact that, and maybe this plays more into like a humiliation fetish than anything else, but the fact that it is the one part of the body that touches the ground, that can
it's
get
the lowest
gross.
part.
That plays into a lot of guys' mentality on it, or a lot of fetishist mentality on it, but not all. But yeah, if you are approaching it from a submissive standpoint, absolutely, it's the lowest of the low. It's the part of a woman's body that's only deserving of the ground, and you're only deserving of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like, so sometimes the men want to like lick the bottom of your shoe. It's not even about your foot. They want to lick the bottom of your shoe. They want to grovel at your feet and lick the bottom of your shoe. And, that's a little bit different, but I feel like all fetishes kind of tie in together.
They do. Yeah, they really do. It's funny how that works.
Yeah. So, we just had a couple of guests on our show that were into macrophilia. which is like a giantess fetish. And so while, yes, they do have most of them do have foot fetishes, at the end of the day, they want to be at your feet because they want to be the smallest they could possibly be. And so that you're the biggest you could possibly be. And then you get into trampling and, I mean, it just gets crazy.
Oh yeah. That's a world that I know nothing about. That's incredible.
And that's why we've done 35 episodes, 35 episodes, and have never run out of things to say, and constantly saying, well, we got to get to that in an episode someday.
Yeah. You have a running list, Google Doc, you keep the notes.
Oh, yeah. We're not that organized.
Like, what are we talking about today?
We're like, which thing did we say we were going to do next?
I mean, some days we just come on and we're just like, so what's up? Like,
yeah.
And then we end up just, expressing ourselves and gabbing and bringing up different points and things, and ends up pretty interesting anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess I could talk to you guys for much longer, but tell me like where we can find you, separately, the podcast itself, just like take some time to kind of let everybody know, where they can keep in contact with you and keep up to speed with what you're doing.
So I think, we met on Instagram and we always call that home base. Okay. So on Instagram, you can find me at TopToes in Hose. And the same on Twitter, although I'm not quite as active there. I do check my direct messages. And those are the two social media platforms I have aside from the podcast.
Okay.
What about your website?
Yeah, my website is teamtoptoes.com. So that has links to other places to find me and the Team Top Toes merch that I spoke a little bit about. Sorry, shameless plugging.
No, please. This is your time to do that. So go nuts.
And I recently lost an Instagram account. And I actually been listening to your podcast quite a bit. And I know that you had mentioned like Instagram deleting some stuff.
Yeah.
So we won't get too into that, but I think the one that's pretty safe, I think from now on, is going to be Ennie, that's ENNIE _podcaster on Instagram. And then from there, I have links to everything else, which there's very PG OnlyFans, and I'm on Reddit as SlapStickChick, and I'm going to open a Twitter soon, probably under any.cutie.toes, which is also my other handle on Instagram. Right. And I think that's all the places.
Except for the podcast itself, which is just search Those Toes on. I don't think we found a podcast platform we're not on yet. We are on all the common ones and a lot of the oddball ones. And we simultaneously upload to YouTube, sometimes with a video component, sometimes just as a podcast, in case you're more apt to use the YouTube app. And the podcast does have its own website, ohthosetoes.teamtoptoes.com. All the podcast links and links back to the two of us and links to all of our podcast guests as well.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you both so much. It's been incredible to pick your brains, and I feel like I've learned so much from you. And hey, yeah, I do feel challenged to make some changes in my bedroom life. So I'll keep you up to speed on that.
Yeah, I'm going to take you. I'm going to follow up with you on that, because I'm going to give you some time to try as much as you can, and maybe give that foot job another try.
If you do, that we have an episode. What would we call that episode? Wait, we're not bound by language here, right? We can say the episode name.
Oh yeah, please. Yeah.
the episode was called "Fuck Those Feet," and awesome. We spoke for an hour and a half on all different foot job technique for the beginner, for the advanced. If you found that
you can do more than just one thing, what?
If you found that it was your calves cramping, then we have a technique that's more on the knees and more on the thighs. Yeah.
Wow.
Take a listen there. You might find a different way that solves those issues.
Okay.
I mean, if you tried that foot drop, the more common and traditional way, which is like, your feet on it and gripping and your legs are up and down, like that is exhausting. Like you have to have really good abdominal core strength to do that. So it's not always fun for the giver, so yeah, but I'm gonna follow up with you because I'm gonna invite you on our podcast so that you can tell us all about what you think and whether you loved or hated it. I think that'll be a good one.
Absolutely.
You're giving out homework. You'd think it was our podcast.
I'm gonna give her homework.
No, I like homework. I'm very good student. So well, thank you both so much. It's been a pleasure. And
it's been a blast. And now I'm definitely looking forward to having you come on and hang with us again.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but thank you for your patience with us. I know that we can be a bit much sometimes.
Oh no. Oh, you know what? I was a theater major, and so bit much is like my cup of tea. So
yay.
we're all a little extra here.
Yeah, no, that's we wouldn't have these podcasts if we were, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, everybody, check out Oh Those Toes and keep listening. Maybe you'll hear more from TopToes and Ennie again someday in the future. Would love to have you back on at some point. Could talk to you guys for forever. So thank you everybody for listening. This has been Wine, Dine, and 69. I am your host, Rachel Dalton, and let's keep talking.